Hi, welcome to IntelleXual University. I'm your host, David S. Dawson, and I am very pleased that you've joined us today for the cast and crew screening and Q&A for the award-winning sci-fi short film, You Are Me, written and directed by Clark M. Smith and produced under his banner Time Axis Entertainment and in association with Sierra Cinematics and our very own IntelleXual Entertainment. Throughout tonight's live stream on Facebook and YouTube, provided you are viewing through our official intellectual entertainment pages on either platform, you can join into tonight's conversation by submitting your questions directly into the comments section of the video, and we will try to get to everyone's questions within the hour or so that we will be chatting. And yes, we will be able to take your questions while we are watching the movie together. Now, let's kick things off by bringing in the man behind the film, writer and director Clark M. Smith. Hello, Clark.
There, how's that? Hear me now?
That's good. We can hear you now.
Well, it's great to be here. This is pretty cool. I've always been on the other end of these things, and now I'm actually in one of them. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I have to thank you, Clark. You've been like our #1 audience member all through the run of Intellectual Universities, and much appreciated all the questions you've posed and all the support you've given us on our films. I'm very happy to turn the attention now on your film, which Intellectual helped make. But this is very much your baby. Tell us a little bit about You Are Me. What's the story about?
You Are Me is about a scientist who has a terminal illness, and he probably has less than a week to live. And he decides to make a clone of himself and attempt to imprint his soul onto the clone so that when he dies, his wife will be none the wiser. And as in traditional science fiction, if you try to play God, there's going to be dire consequences.
Right? Never play God. It never turns out well. What was the motivation for you in creating this film? How did the story come to you?
Well, I'm definitely a sci-fi geek and a fan, and I've written a lot of scripts. Sometimes when I write a script, I just know that this is like the next one I have to do. I'm not going to be able to rest until this one is made, and this one just really hit me. It really kind of hit home a little bit, kind of personal, in a way, with some deaths in my own family, and the whole idea of cheating death and going on beyond death, stories like that. And honestly, it was probably a Twilight Zone or two that was highly influential, that this probably lifts quite a bit of ideas from. I don't know specifically which one. I feel like it might have been one from the 80s when it was the color version, when the 80s had the redo of the Twilight Zone. So one of those episodes. But yeah, I wrote it. It just came together. I mean, I wrote the first draft and it didn't really change much. It just felt right. So I started to do the casting and showed it to Randy. And Randy and I had already worked together on something called Silver Hill. And I definitely was having him in mind as I wrote it. And I thought he was perfect for it.
Well, speaking of Randy, why don't we bring Randy on? We can talk a little bit about how you two came to work on this together. Randy Davison, welcome to Intellectual University.
Good to see you guys. What's up, Clark?
How you doing? Good.
Good. David?
So, Randy, do you remember how Clark approached you with this project?
Yeah. It was a couple years before we actually did it, and he brought the script to me, and I read it. I loved it. Like him, I grew up with the Twilight Zone, and I love the story, and I love the twist, for those who haven't seen it yet. At the end, I love sci-fi, just like Clark, and I've always wanted to play. I've seen movies, where people play either a twin brother or a clone. So I just thought that would have been a cool challenge to play two versions of myself. So that was exciting. I think when I first read it, I thought, of all movies, I know it's an odd, underrated movie, but Multiplicity with Michael Keaton, which I love.
Multiplicity is brilliant.
It is.
Yeah,
and so I'm like, oh, God, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah, actors are always struggling to land that one role. This is one of those opportunities where you landed two.
Twice. I only got one IMDb credit, though, darn
it. Jordan Jacobo, our good buddy here in town, asks which Twilight Zone episode will your next film be based on? Snarky as ever, Jordan.
I try not to get too M. Night Shyamalan-ish.
What is it about Randy that
wait a minute. Once you have
casting him, Clark?
Tell him about the 2.0 story you have.
Oh yeah, I kind of wrote a pseudo sequel to this movie. It's in the same universe. It's called Randy 2.0 as a working title. But we can talk about that a different time. But what you're asking, what did I see in Randy? Well, I mean, when I worked with him in Strawberry Hill, which was now 5 years ago, it was a great experience. He's not only is he a great actor, but great work ethic, all around nice guy. Everybody knows that. And I don't know. I just thought he'd be great as this character. And I know that he's done a lot of comedy, and maybe not as much serious, but I thought he could really nail this serious role, and it's required some crying and some emotional stuff. I just knew he could do it.
Now, at the core of this film is a relationship between two people that I find questionable in its honesty. But it can only be a successful film if Randy's scene partner is genuine, effective, and a lovely human being. So I would like to bring in Randy's co-star, Annie Willett-Thomas. Hello, Annie.
Hey, Annie.
Hi, Annie.
Hello. Hi.
What about Annie drew you to Annie for this role? And was there an audition process, or did you just know these are the people you wanted to work with?
I didn't audition anybody. I actually went through quite a bit of possibilities for the wife character before I even really knew about Annie. I mean, I hadn't seen her in the Gromit's movies that she was in, but I had asked a lot of people, a lot of actresses around here that I had asked. I already moved to LA and kind of couldn't come down here to do this. But then I saw her movie where she played the person that murdered the TV newscaster. I forget what it's called. And I was pretty blown away by how different she looks in real life compared to that role. I knew she could disappear into a role. And then I simply asked her, I thought, well, she's not going to want to do this. She's a Gromit girl. She's not going to want to be in my little thing. But lo and behold, she said yes. And I was very pleased. And then it was
for those people who are watching her, not San Diego-based filmmakers, the Gromits, or the Amalgamated Gromits, are one of the most successful short film teams here in town. And Annie's been in a few of their brilliant films. Annie, what did you think of You Are Me when you got a hold of the script?
I loved the twist because it got me. And so, something's going on, but until somebody, can get you on the twist, because sometimes they're predictable, right? So this time it wasn't. And I went, oh my God, I have to do this. And obviously I do death well as Clark introduced me. So not that I'm actually not giving the twist away. Maybe giving my character away. But yeah, it was that. It was there was, character development there for in the relationship. And then all of a sudden you read the end and you have to track back to page 1 and go, wait a second, how did I miss this? And so it was the script. It was easy. Nice. I mean, Randy helped. I do like him.
I was excited when I found out Annie was going to be in it.
So sweet.
I've always wanted to act with you, so this was.
Well, you never know. You never know what.
So many years, and we've never, worked together.
We were in NBL together, but we didn't have scenes together.
No, exactly.
And you never know if
that's one of those interesting things, Randy. Like, people don't always realize just because you're in a movie together doesn't mean you actually ever even saw each other on set, right?
No.
Clark, you want to start bringing in some of the crew?
Yeah, and I also want to say that, of course, you don't know what kind of chemistry they're going to have beforehand. We didn't do any rehearsals. Speak of a couple little ones, but by then everyone was hired. But I was just very amazed and grateful how wonderful I thought their chemistry was. I mean, the scene in the restaurant just feels really organic, like they really have been married a long time. So I was really blown away by the good chemistry, good casting choices I made.
Thanks.
Well, you're always happy when the director's happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jordan wants to know if that's Annie's miniature robot clone.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Are you wearing green on purpose?
I did. I totally did.
Oh, yes. And we totally intentionally are using green in the highlights on today's episode, and we'll get into that when we start talking about the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Green Brandy's.
Am I a clone or am I the real one? What color am I wearing?
Well, you're blue, so yeah.
I'm
People
really
will know by the end of this podcast.
So we got Mike Peterson coming in next. Our amazing VP.
There he is. Mike Peterson. Welcome.
How's it going?
good. I have one question I want to ask Mike.
What's up?
Did you have COVID?
You know, we don't know.
Ugh.
I had it too early to get tested during all of it. When I got sick, it was still like you had to be traveling outside the country within 14 days. At this point, we don't know.
Okay. Sorry, I know that's off topic.
No, it's good.
I was worried about you.
It was by far the worst sickness I've ever had in my entire life.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Glad
So
you're back.
Mike Peterson was the cinematographer on You Are Me. Do you guys want to talk real quick about your collaboration, Clark and Mike?
Sure.
Sure. I mean, I go first. I had gone through a couple of ideas and recommendations from different people who to get, because I had worked with this guy by the name of Chris Peterson for a couple of films that I made and also had edited, and also did some AC work for him. But he ended up, long story short, getting a job at what's it called? The TV show about the lobsters and all that. Deadliest Catch, yeah. So he's up in Alaska all the time. He's got a couple of kids. He's pretty much turned his back on doing short films in San Diego. So I started looking around and talking to different people. Somehow I got wind of David Dawson. This is, 3 years ago now or whatever, but and all of his films and his award-winning stuff. And that kind of led me into Mike Peterson as one of his main men that he works with. And I saw hit Mike's reel, and of course I got to see Forever My Love, which is a really nice looking movie. And I forget which one of you was the official VP on that, but I knew you guys worked as a team.
That was Michael Shane
Yeah,
Bolt.
that was Michael Shane.
Okay.
But yeah, we work together.
So why don't we bring him in?
That guy.
Hi, Michael.
Wait, that's wrong. That way, this way. Okay, good. Got it.
Yeah. So Michael and Mike Peterson and Teresa, my sister, kind of make up the kind of core camera department of Intellectual Entertainment, and I gave them on loan to Clark.
Yeah, at first it was just going to be Mike, I guess, at first, and he slowly brought in the other two, which was great, because we often had 3 cameras going, which I didn't know we were going to have that kind of thing, but that was a wonderful thing to add. So I'm glad that those two.
It was interesting because Clark had the idea of doing most of this movie as a one-shot, and I'm all for it for certain reasons, but we've gotten really good as a team of using multicam. So we'll have 2-3 cameras to do certain shots, and it ends up getting takes a little longer to set up initially, but you go through scenes quicker. It makes editing and continuity go away for the most part.
It's easier on the actors.
Easier on the actors, the crew, all that kinds of stuff.
But you need a bigger.
Yeah.
What was that?
I wasn't going to do like a 1917 kind of oneer, just a couple different oneers here and there.
Yep.
But yeah, we did a couple of those. It came out all pretty good.
Yeah, but we worked all pretty good as a team. It was good.
Yeah.
So who else we got on there, Clark? Who else are we bringing in?
We look at Elise. She was one of the co-producers of the project. She has moved to Hawaii, but she's still here. Hi.
Yeah. Hi.
Her and Jill worked together as the producers. They did a whole bunch of work beforehand and ahead of the movie being shot and SAG stuff and whatnot. So they were very instrumental. And she also worked a lot on the lab set, as I recall.
Yeah,
right?
we brought Rachel in, who did the production design.
Yeah, she's the official production designer. And she knocked it out of the park, as we all know. Take it away, Rachel.
So much pressure. No, that was really fun. I was kind of brought on later, so most of what I touched was the garage scene, and Annalise and I, we kind of threw that together pretty fast, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We spent like an afternoon working on that.
Yeah, it was super fun, and then camera crew came in and helped me light it, so we got like a really, really fun blue and yellow glow, which I think kind of take that to the next level. So really excited about that. And then the rest of it was watching, making sure it is honestly it's kind of helping out with continuity a bit in terms of making sure the meals were reset at the beginning of the scenes and stuff.
Also,
No, she did an amazing job. I mean, I was worried that the lab would be cheesy and dorky looking, and we didn't really have any money to spend on it. And it was a completely empty garage. We came in and set up all these monitors, and slowly but surely it took shape, and it's pretty darn cool. That was my biggest concern, that it was going to look not capable of making a clown and having all the high tech stuff in it to do so.
It was fun. Just like grabbed random hardware store pieces and stuff I had laying around my house and found a bunch of wire casings and just kind of threw them all over the set until it looked cool. It was super fun. Some of my favorite design projects I've done.
Good. Me too.
So I'm just going to bring this up because Jordan, I know he wants to see it on screen. Jordan says this looks like a poorly conceived Brady Bunch.
Jordan.
Well, why don't we get into the movie? We'll watch the movie together, and we can comment on the film as it goes along. You guys can provide insights to the people who are watching with us. Again, if you're in the Facebook or the YouTube stream, drop those comments, and we can bring those up while we're watching the movie. If you have questions, ask them as we're going live. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right, let's pull this thing up. Look, we're all little teeny tiny people now.
At least we're all there.
Time axis, Clark, you want to explain that name?
That's a little bit involved, but maybe some other time. It's a pretty cool name. I made the logo just in After Effects. It's a standard template. And I guess we don't have our Larry today, do we?
Nope.
I just want to call out the makeup in this scene in particular. I thought it was so good.
Yeah.
I look sick. Not in a cool young person way.
Our makeup designer was a very last minute replacement to somebody else. She came on board and just knocked it out of the park for us real quick.
Your prognosis remains.
Now, I didn't mention I was the color corrector on this film, or not enough mention about it. But this room was a nightmare.
Oh, the scene drives me crazy because of the ADR too.
Yeah, I also did the ADR and sound design. But this room, super small. The building itself has like a weird hum. So all of that audio had a hum in it, so it had to be replaced. Crazy.
Yeah, bad
scene.
Bad location, as it turned out.
It's not that strange.
And I love this scene. This is probably, cinematically speaking, my favorite scene. How it turned out, how it looks.
I took the weekend before shooting with Teresa, Dave, and Mike to really practice like a dining set. I set up a china ball. This is all shot during day. We had to black out all the windows, everything all around us. Yeah, it was a lot of practice that went into making this look good.
Hey, Annie's wearing green tonight, and I'm wearing blue.
There you go.
What are the chances?
You're in character.
I also added a lot of depth to the lighting in the post production to emphasize the candle light and whatnot.
Yeah, that's one of the best coloring jobs on the whole movie.
You have my actor headshots on the screen.
Yeah, Andy headshots. He's all over the place. Just Googled his name and found pictures all over the place.
So we spent a full day shooting in this garage in the hottest part of August. And dying for a day, but it came out well.
Very hot. And here's Randy wearing a sweater.
Oh, it's the hottest garage in the street.
That the hottest scene was in the bedroom when you were.
Yeah, that was really hot.
That was
we
hot.
had fans over.
Oh yeah, that's
No, I'd have to say the garage was a close second.
It was horrible. It's horrible. So here's Kevin. Kevin is our stand-in whenever Randy's not himself or whatever. It's stand-in body double. That's his hands. Conversely, that's going to be Kevin on the table.
We shoot this in June.
Didn't
it was the last week of June and then the second week of August.
Yeah.
Didn't we almost kill Randy by wrapping him in plastic wrap? Killing him.
Drenched.
Oh,
No, we don't talk about that.
Yeah, we almost made
Jordan
it.
wants to know what the story was with the cardboard robot.
Oh, Matt Morgan made that for another Brueggemeyer movie called something of life. I forget now what it was called. And I asked him if we could use it for a little, robot prop.
Okay, so we're back in the doctor's office. So I want to point out here. So for color correction, it's a bright yellow room. It's a very small room too. So it's a bright yellow room with white cabinets, white lab coat, and light colored pants. And everything that's light reflected yellow. So everything looked very, very yellow. So I had to work on isolating everything in this shot to remove yellow out of the whites. There was a lot of tracking, frame to frame, making sure everything was clean. It took a long time to get this room looking really good in post-production. Also, all that humming we had, we completely replaced all the audio in the doctor's office in post-production.
Didn't you say you worked on the coloring or
I'm not sure.
the whole post of this movie more than any other movie in your life?
I spent 350 hours color correcting this movie.
You logged it.
Oh my god.
So I
would have just
And
made
it wasn't just color correcting things too. Like this shot here, that depth of field is artificially done to make the people in the background blurry. And so I rotoscoped Randy all throughout the scene so that he's cut out from the background so that we could blur it out.
Rachel, there you are.
I don't realize how much I was in this shot.
You forgot?
Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, you and Kevin.
Another question from Jordan. Just a nod to the grommets, or was the robot intended to be a Randy prototype?
It was a rough prototype.
Well, maybe a little above. I actually worked on that grommet movie that they made.
That's what I'm trying to say is that
Something that Jason Levitt had written, and they made it.
So I want to point out in this scene too, there's a lot of color stuff. So we're going to get into the green and blue, right? So Clark, tell us what green and blue means in this movie.
And I might be
Well, let's give a shout out to Jennifer Pelling, the costume designer. She came up with the whole idea that if you're a robot or a clone, then you have to wear green, and that goes along with the green lines on their forehead.
Oh, you give the twist away.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what I just said.
People should have already seen the movie, Randy. So we're going to
Yeah, they should have.
That's true. Yeah,
Because we're talking over it. Nobody's going to hear what's going on.
everything's fine.
Yeah, if we're going to talk about the colors, that definitely gives away the
So blue was living and green was artificial.
I just wanted you to know.
Yeah. And then Randy changes to green after it becomes a clown. You'll notice.
Yeah.
it's
So
kind of
Randy's
obvious.
struggling with the fact that he's going to go artificial in this scene, right?
Yeah.
So something else I did color correction wise in this is Annie's got green highlights on her outfit, but I color corrected the entire room around him to have a green tint.
Yes.
Because he's surrounded in this idea of becoming a robot.
Kind of a matrix green almost, right?
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was a great scene. That's one of my favorite scenes. I love their chemistry. I mentioned. Here's a second lab scene.
Doing these split screens were fun.
That was fun.
We shot a whole series, and then at some point, my camera got shifted during a lunch break, and we had to shoot a lot of it over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun lunch.
So I was so pissed.
Yeah, that added some stress.
Yeah. Anyone ever fess up?
But luckily, some of that footage was usable from the other angles, so it wasn't a complete wash.
Yep.
It was probably that damn clone that did it. That was fun to to record. I had to record them separately. Kevin, thank you, Kevin, wherever he's at, for being the stand-in and giving me some of the
Yeah.
So you did it, Randy?
What's that?
Not looking too good, babe. You all right? Think you might have the flu?
Yeah, Kevin was a humongous help.
No, I didn't do it. No, the camera, no.
My very favorite shot of the whole movie is coming up when Randy turns around and tearfully says, "Okay." I just love that moment.
Aaron, one last hug. Good luck.
Silly, I'm going to be late. I'll call you later, hopefully with good news. Right, sweetheart.
Randy was my favorite shot of the whole movie. Just love Randy's moment here.
Annie, I just want to point out you are beautiful on camera. Every shot of you in this movie is just gorgeous.
Yeah, very photogenic.
And Randy, you look sick. You just don't look good.
You look good.
You should get that checked out. I'd get it looked at if I were you.
I look like Ricky Gervais.
You do.
David Brent crying. This is music
More-
doesn't go anywhere.
More good depth of field work from
Yeah, more rotoscoping and stuff on this shot.
yeah.
Yeah, 'cause that was a GoPro, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was.
Stuck on the hood. Yeah, you do look sick. Makeup was great. I had invited Reber, our composer, to join us, but he was unable to. But he did a knockout job on the score. I thought he did a. It's in all the movies I've made since I moved to San Diego, 2009.
These were fun to shoot. These were pretty much just go to the montage stuff, just kind of fun, make it up when we went through the park. And
That's a cool shot.
But it was so hot, so hot.
Well, I like the contrast because he's in so much darkness in that shot, and then we go to these bright daylight outdoor shots.
That was my arm, by the way, opening the door. We were doing some post slow motion. Didn't shoot it that way, but in post.
I have to say, Clark, I like that this sequence is extended out and that it's just instrumental. It's not any dialogue.
Mhm.
Tells a lot of Randy's emotional journey
Yeah.
from upstairs to downstairs.
Was this part when you was walking down the stairs? Is that in every version? Yeah.
Yep.
It is?
Pretty much.
Okay.
The other one, there's a shortened version where we cut to the flashbacks really quick. But
okay.
Oh,
that's a 15-minute version we put together. Actually, Rich Varville had cut that together for me to make a nice and concise 15-minute tight version. This one's about 21 minutes.
okay. Got it.
Oh my God.
So for the most part, the split screens here weren't too bad, but there is one moment here where Randy starts crossing his hand in front of the duplicate in that wide shot.
Oh, really?
And the rotoscope his individual fingers
Yeah, it's coming up
through the
For the
motion.
minute here.
Good morning.
You can see the moment that he rotoscoped.
Morning back.
Yeah. I never noticed.
How are you feeling, Bryson?
Good, I did my job then.
I think it's this shot.
Wow.
Came close right there.
There was a continuity issue too with the little knobs on his head because they kept coming off.
Oh, God, that was the worst. Because I was sweaty. It was so hot.
And I don't know if you noticed, but when he hands him the thing, the little button thing
You don't have
later,
Yeah.
to worry about
it's the wrong hand handing him in the close-up.
I never noticed.
You'll never not notice it now.
If you notice,
Thank you.
I don't know if you notice my body posture, like the sick version of me is very like kind of broken down and hunched over. The clone is very rigid and new and fresh.
Thanks, Jen.
Oh, tell him what that is, Clark. Hurry.
That's a screen used prop from The Thing, 1982, John Carpenter.
Yeah, that was awesome. Kurt Russell probably touched that.
That wasn't in the other version, so I wanted to bring that back.
It killed it. Kurt Russell probably killed that.
So
Well,
the whole storyline here is he's dying, right? And he creates a clone of himself to put himself into. But you came up with a set of rules for the clone, Clark. Can you explain what those rules are?
I did. Let me think.
Up at midnight.
Can't swap spit, apparently, is the rule.
Oh, that thing. Yeah, well,
No bodily fluids.
in order for them to show some way of making them break down, I had to have a way that a rule that he couldn't. In other words, they can't kiss or exchange any kind of bodily fluids with another clone bot of a similar make.
About
He just assumed that would never happen, or there would never be another one like him.
energy, which could confuse my electronic brain or cause.
Yeah, so no interactions with other clones.
And it's cool because they almost kissed when he comes home and he says, "I'm too sick. You're too sick," or whatever. And that would have been the moment, where they would have shocked each other. But
myself or said machinery.
he dragged it out.
Such as saliva, blood, sweat.
Randy, how did you approach playing the clone?
Okay, that's fine. That's
So with the clone, I played him very robotic to start until I got to what I'm about to do here, where I give the emotions and the thoughts and the memories. And when those come into me, I'm almost like a little boy. Like I'm relearning everything again. Like when I taste wine, I taste cheese. Like I've had it before, but it's like, oh, I forgot how good that is. So it's everything from almost like a child's point of view. As we get toward the end of the film, then I begin to get more human. I just played it as that it takes a while for me to digest everything that's been put into me, if that makes sense.
And the brilliancy behind that is that we shot so out of order, you had to keep track of what level human you'd be at. Or
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm very robotic right now. I kind of had robotic movement.
And it wasn't really written necessarily for you to act so robotic.
No.
Originally, you were going to spend a more
Post-production lighting effect right there. I just want to point that out.
Oh yeah, across his face.
I kind of discussed it with you, and because it was kind of my idea, and I asked if you liked that, because the clone is mostly organic. I mean, it's mostly clone with an electronic brain. So the brain is robotic. That's the only part of the body that's not human, I guess. Or human flesh.
Plus, you don't really get your personality until he actually hits the personality button, and it goes into your soul and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Getting a little buffering issue here.
Tell them the cool story about this, Clark.
Okay, so these ashes, except for one shot, are my mother's actual ashes. And some people thought that was a little weird, but my mom was in a whole bunch of my college films years ago, and I wanted to put her in one more movie, just in an interesting way. So that's her ashes, and she's in our new movie.
And in Lake Dixon.
Yep. Still there now.
Wait, hold up. That was your mom?
That was.
For real?
Yes.
For real.
You told me that the whole time.
Yeah, we didn't tell you.
That's her. She's cremated.
These guys don't tell me everything. Sometimes they're just like, don't tell him. It'll be better.
You might have been wigged out. Like you are with spiders and stuff.
So good to see you.
Well, I know we regularly try to keep in pieces of my dad and my mom in our movies too, so I get it.
Not anymore.
This is the third scene we shot.
The list on the refrigerator changed. Oh no, well, it changed on purpose, but it's just kind of funny.
Never knows.
Yeah, I seem to remember, didn't we have a couple people writing on it so that we had different handwriting?
Oh no.
Yeah, I think so. So it was a weird detail.
Here's a weird little detail. So they clink the glasses together, but they sound like tick, tick. So I added in clinks and post.
There's me tasting cheese for the first time again.
Me though,
And wine.
And wine, yeah.
I think I'm gonna go up and get ready for bed.
People laugh at his line about feeling dead, but the real joke is that Annie's saying that she's actually really dead. That's the real joke. And you kind of see that when you go back and watch it again.
So what was it? She says I'm feeling really dead, and I go feeling kind of dead myself.
Yeah,
it was great. Great writing.
This was another one of those shots that was really hard to color correct.
My cough just went away.
it was unfortunate we had to shoot in this bedroom instead of the actual house. We didn't have enough time to do it at the actual house. So it's my house.
Told me that in such a long time.
Not very good location.
And there it is. You can't touch. And they touch and swap spit, and that's it. Game over.
Power down.
Mm-hmm.
Was it fun to do that? To sort of lock lips and wiggle around like that?
That was really fun to get shocked by Annie. That was the best part.
Well, not many people have seen this little alternate ending if it ever comes
Buffering
back.
at you. Sorry. There we go.
Nothing happens.
Here
There's a
comes
painting. Rachel's painting.
Buffered again.
The Loki painting. And I kind of wanted to get some opinions about this because not that many people like it, including, I think, David doesn't really like it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this scene, which got deleted out of most of the public performances.
Oh, that's right.
Wasn't it at the end of the credits?
Yeah, it was an after credit kind of Marvel idea that we ended up using, but I played with the music an awful lot that Reaver gave me and fine-tuned it as much as I could. It was never quite right, so now that I got it right, I thought I'd throw it in here and see how we. Of course, you can't really hear it right now, but
I didn't have anything on it. That was blank. It was the back of a tombstone. Right?
yeah, we did the Photoshop on it.
Look at the dates.
That's the release date of 2112 by Rush.
Oh, nice. So we're almost 100 years in the future.
Yeah. Even though your cell phone looks like it's from right now.
They don't have flying cars yet. It's probably going to be that way.
I thought your moment was very moving right there. Your near tears, kind of quivering lips. I love that. So I think it's a good scene. It's just a little odd, I guess, for a science fiction movie to go here.
Well, I think it's also a violation of what the story was, personally.
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
So maybe you can look at it again with full music, see what you think then. But I thought
I have.
I don't think that scene should be there. I think it should end with them in the bed when they go kaput.
It has a more Twilight Zone vibe if it ends in the bed, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a darker vibe.
Yeah, which feels like more of what the rest of the movie is kind of like.
Yeah, because it's a tragic story of two people who actually don't communicate with one another. And that lack of communication is what results in them ultimately not being able to spend their time together for eternity. Because theoretically, they could have lived in eternity as two robots. They never would have been able to get it on, but they would have been able to stay connected, right? But because neither one told the other what was going on with them, they end up annihilating one another.
There's a line. I thought it was
a tragic story there that these two people couldn't be open enough with one another, with the people they love. They couldn't be open enough with them to tell them the truth of what was going on with them and what they were planning on doing. And it ends up completely destroying their lives and ruining their chance at eternity together. So for me, that post afterlife ending is tonally incorrect to the story you were telling.
Yeah, and you were kind of the first person that kind of made me think that they're actually being quite selfish and and keeping these deep, dark secrets from each other, rather than being selfless and trying to keep each other from having to go through that kind of grief.
That's true. The restaurant scene, I try to tell her, and I pull back, and I don't. And there are little nuggets you dropped in the script that I thought were great. When I'm at the doctor, and Larry says, your wife was exposed to the same radiation in the mines of Imam, which was Miami backwards, you said?
Yeah.
It's just kind of cool. And I said, no, she's already been tested and she's fine, but she wasn't. And then I make the comment, like, falling in love with you in that robotics lab was the happiest day of my life. So it drops nuggets that she did the same thing.
Yeah, a lot of nuggets, for sure.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, there's definitely breadcrumbs all along the way that kind of tells you what she did.
Right.
And that he's on the same path, but he can't talk to her. And to
Did
me,
did you see the comment? I just said it's like a tongue.
that one.
You guys know what the reference?
I get it.
Yeah.
This Pina Colada song is this beautiful song that everybody loves to sing and be happy with, and it's all about two people trying to cheat on one another who then accidentally wind up together. But no, Clark, I think the brilliance of this movie is that it's about the relationship you have with your loved one and how important honesty is, and there's no honesty in this movie between these two people. Even though they obviously share a tremendous amount of love and affection for one another, neither one of them seems capable of being honest about this brutal truth that they're going through. And in hiding it, they destroy what they have. And I think that's the beautiful story. And my objection to the cemetery scene is that I think it's a violation of that core story that you were telling.
And that's an interesting observation.
As a spiritual person, because I know that spiritual side is very important to you, and I know you had lost family recently. Randy had lost family recently, and of course, Teresa and I have lost tons of family recently, and we all have that desire for the afterlife. But I just feel like within the context of this story, it didn't fit, and that's my opinion. I don't know what the rest of the team feels, but
that's a cool observation. Like I said, I never saw it that way. I thought they were being completely selfless and keeping each other from having to go through the terrible grief of losing your spouse. But that's an interesting. I mean, that wasn't even necessarily something I set out to do, what you were feeling. But more power to it.
So fascinating about this, though, is I think I probably saw it a bit more like Clark saw it. But now that you're pointing that out to me, I can see both sides so strongly, and I think that that's really fascinating in and of itself. And I don't think you have to have that end scene to still have the selfless side of it. And I kind of love that it is kind of open to interpretation a little bit. Take it how you will.
As all the best sci-fi stories are, like very much open to your own interpretation.
Blade Runner, for sure. I felt the opposite. I thought I was being very selfless because I wanted that goodbye, and then I wanted a longer goodbye, and I'm dying. This is it. I was trying to give her the gift of not going through the pain of losing me. So, and it was tearing me apart. I went through the loss of as if someone had died in my life, like losing her. Like I know I'm dying, and the fear of me losing my life. But my biggest loss was losing Annie.
So it's 2 against 2 so far.
Well, I'm not saying I'm against it. I love the ending where it ends in the bed. I'm kind of on the dark side, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful scene. I mean, the cemetery scene is a beautiful scene. But I that's the Twilight Zone aspect. It's like it ends like a Twilight Zone or like a Tales from the Dark Side. That's what I love.
I think what I like about it is that it kind of asks a question that we have in like a modern world where we are starting to get technology where people are like, oh, well, we can preserve ourselves. We can preserve our brain and we can preserve our parts of our bodies. And it's a question of, should we do that? And so I think that's an interesting way of putting it where it's like one person is there but isn't there. So I like that aspect of it.
Playing God always has detrimental effects.
Yeah. Did we lose Annie?
Yeah, she keeps coming in and out. I'll bring her back in if she comes back on. So Mark Atkinson asks, what's the difference between this version, Clark, and the version that played at Idlewild?
Well, it definitely didn't have the cemetery scene. I guess it probably had it in the after credits, but it probably lost even more Larry stuff. It kind of packed a lot of Larry stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot more there.
And it didn't have the ashes in the lake scene. That was a big thing to add. That wasn't completely a necessary scene, I guess, but I always wanted it up for obvious reasons for my mom and all that. That's about it.
Well, I think that's an interesting aspect of filmmaking that a lot of people don't understand is that we oftentimes shoot a whole lot more than what you end up seeing in a theater. And that process of post-production really is about whittling it down until you find the core elements that are what are essential to telling the story. But as we've discussed with that cemetery scene, so much of that is also up to interpretation, and sometimes you cut stuff out that people would have enjoyed, in the effort of trying to keep it succinct, and it's always a tap dance between, is it too long, is it too short, and am I telling enough for people to understand what's
even when we were in the middle of filming, we had to cut shots, and that was hard because I know that there were other shots that you wanted, Clark, but we had to.
Yeah,
we had a really ambitious production schedule, right?
Yeah,
we did. Yeah, we did. But on that note about the shortening, I mean, the version that played in San Diego Film Week was pretty much this one, except for the commentary. It was pretty long, and it didn't do much business in San Diego. It got turned down actually by Oceanside. But then it started getting some more play in some other awards and stuff like Cholo, and the other one, what was it called? Silicon Beach. So that was the shorter 15-minute Rich Barville cut that started getting awards and more and more accepted. So there really does something to say about streamlining your short movie.
Mm-hmm. Brian Davis asked, did Real Randy make the Antibot? I think that's a no, right?
Well, she made the Antibot before she died.
Wait, what was the question? What was it?
Brian was asking did Real Randy make the Antibot? And I think that's a definite no, right? Because he didn't know
some people thought that he did make her for some weird reason. That was never part of it, but she did her own thing before all this. She died before all this, and she's been dead before all this. So
it's so interesting to see what people hear and don't hear within the context of the stories you tell, right?
Yeah, it is.
It always fascinates me, no matter how succinct you try to be, how clear you try to be, there's still people who only see certain parts of the story you're telling. I always find that fascinating, the things that get missed from one viewing to the next.
And luckily I've only met like maybe one person that had guessed that she was a robot already ahead of time. Everyone else was pretty surprised to find out that she was in fact dead this entire movie.
I was reading the script until the end. Oh, what? Yeah, I didn't pick it up.
She's dead.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about the production schedule. How many days did you shoot this film in?
4
days.
Yeah, 2 weekends.
And it was how many pages?
10, 15, 20?
Probably 20, yeah.
20.
The first cut was like 25 minutes, the first edit cut. So yeah, 25 pages, I'd say.
Yeah.
We did all the interiors of the house in Jill's house on Saturday. We did the garage on Sunday. The following week we took off. Then we did
Dixon.
Lake Dixon. We went back to the outside of Jill's house and shot the car and all the outside stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then went to the doctor's office. The next day we did the bedroom at Clark's, and then we drove over to Poway, from La Jolla to Poway, to shoot the restaurant.
And you did the park. Definitely.
In the park.
Yeah, it was a pretty busy shooting schedule, all right, no doubt.
And it was hot AF.
Oh God, it was hot.
Yeah, you shot in August, right?
It was a heat wave. I mean, we don't have AC here, and it was miserable. I mean,
that's right. There's no AC at the house. We shot the bedroom scene, right?
20 bodies in here.
What's that?
We used fans, remember? Because we turned on the fan as soon as the scene was done filming.
Yeah. There's a book next to the bed, and I remember holding the book, and it was horrible.
Not good.
What I'm curious, for each of you, what is your favorite moment in the film and why?
I love the clone stuff, but for me, I think it was that restaurant scene with Annie. I felt very connected, both of us. She gave me so much to work with, and I really love that moment. The moment where the kiss wasn't in the script. When I tell her, I just want you to know that no matter what happens, I'll love you and I will always love you. And then she then kissed me, and then I put my hand on her face, and the tears started welling up. It cut right before the tears started flowing, but I thought that moment was, for me, the best.
that would be my second favorite scene too. But my first favorite scene is when you guys leave each other on the outside with the car and all that. I thought that was acted, shot, and beautifully, and the whole thing was just really tugs at the heartstrings kind of scene to me.
What about any of the rest of you?
For me, making it pretty. So the dining room scene and the garage.
Yeah, from my point of view, the garage scene is the most visually interesting for me. And generally, when I watch stuff, I'm trying to pick it apart and figure out where the mistakes are. So I'm the kind of guy that stops and reads what's on the screen behind there, and remembering full well that those were all on different loops that would sometimes turn off and pause. So like, Rachel, how many screens were there? Like 6, 7, 8. All of them would start doing different stuff if they didn't loop, and then if it was half where Randy was on this side and the phone was on this side, this TV was up the same as that one, it got a little crazy.
Yeah.
It was by far the most prepared for the shoot I was that first weekend. Not that I wasn't for the second half, but I put the most effort into planning the shots that I really wanted, like the sliding across with the computers and all the stuff in front, the garage, this kind of circular tracking that we did with the wheelchair. We shot the dining room. I was in a wheelchair. Teresa was pulling me in a wheelchair as we're circling around it. That was by far the most fun and creative, and I thought the most challenged, some of the most challenged shots I've done to date.
How about let's hear from
Split screen.
What's Teresa's favorite scene?
My favorite scene?
Yeah.
Well, I would say one of them was it was an outside shot where Randy falls to the ground. I don't think it was in, but one of my favorite scenes. I just remember watching Randy because we had to do it 2 different camera. One was following down, one was down on the ground to catch him fall, and just catch the different moments of when he kind of broke down. That was a fun.
Was that in the driveway, Teresa?
It was in the driveway.
Okay,
Yeah.
Fall into frame.
Yeah, fall into frame and stuff. But so I liked that shot. That was one of my favorite scenes. Plus Randy, I always love it when Randy has to really pull that stuff out.
We like to make Randy cry.
We like to make Randy cry.
I actually asked Clark to cut that one. I was like, it's too much. I felt like too much.
And I did. We did cut it. It's not in these versions anymore.
I just
I thought it was too much too, because I thought it was too much too early.
Yeah. I wanted that moment the walk down the stairs was more powerful without the breakdown already.
Yeah.
It just felt like to me, but
yep.
No, I totally agree. And Clark and I had many, many arguments about what should stay and what should go in post.
I didn't want that. Don't get me wrong. I didn't want that scene in the movie where it was. I liked the shots of it.
Yeah, when we say favorite scenes, it's shots.
Yeah.
I'll take it from my reel.
Camera crew is all about the image.
It's all about the image for us. So like for me, shooting that and how that turned out, I really enjoy. I liked that, but I didn't think it belonged in the movie.
I know.
Our transition shots between scenes that obviously when you cut movies for time, transition shots are usually like the very first thing to go.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of pretty shots that would transition from that didn't make any of the film. But that's the biz. That's what happens.
And I know the shot Teresa's talking about. You had a close up on Randy. It was kind of a dirty handheld.
It was a dirty handheld shot. Yep. Yeah, it was a kind of nitty gritty with him, and for the shot itself to be raw because it was such a raw emotional moment for him. So
very, very Jason Bourne. It was a great shot.
Yeah.
And those two were laying on the driveway in August.
Burning.
I sit back and be like, "You guys are doing a good job. Yeah."
you could cook an egg on that driveway. Way to go.
Yeah.
It's hot there. You want me to hand you the camera? There you go.
I think eventually, Joe came up with an umbrella and started to shade us because we were melting on the ground. But yeah, there was a lot of fun shots. I always enjoy working with the 2 mics for a crew. I think the three of us really get along well, so we kind of.
Except that one time when you yelled at me and I pouted.
Yeah, well, you deserved it.
One
But
time.
Over here.
Annie said, sorry guys, she's not talking. She keeps freezing. So
yeah.
Yeah, Annie kept getting booted out, so I think she's given up on trying to come back in. Rachel and Elise, what were your favorite moments in the film?
From a story perspective and acting performance perspective, I just love that scene when Randy's really saying goodbye to Annie, and she's completely oblivious, and each of them played that so well. Just Annie just like, oh, I'm just trying to get to work, and Randy just feeling all this emotion, and I love the contrast of that. And then this is like a really, really minor thing, but I think my favorite shots in the film are in the garage when the camera's just panning and there's like, you see the little computer screens and then Randy just behind it. I just, I don't know, it's like really subtle little thing. I just think it's a beautiful shot.
Yeah, he's like bent over and he kind of comes into frame. And yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, one of the things we did real quick, like in the garage, just to get to a lot of those shots, we had 3 cameras going a lot. We had a camera on a slider, we had a camera on sticks to always get a solid, and then we usually had a handheld somewhere. I was usually hiding all over the place in a handheld in the garage. So to get a lot of these interesting shots, we, especially in the garage, we had all 3 cameras going at once in this tiny little space and try to not be in each other's shots.
Not all that effort really paid off, though, because I think of all the places that you need the interesting kind of quirky shots, it's in that garage. So it looked great, guys.
Yeah.
But Clark, you said that you didn't realize how much footage you got from the garage.
Yeah, I didn't realize you guys were all shooting all at once. Yeah, which was great.
We'll talk about that aspect of making the movie in just a second. I want to get Annalise's favorite moment in the movie.
I would say that the most beautiful scene, I like the candlelit dinner. I know it's like a super minor thing, but I like the wine bottle and how it has like the wine streaks on the label and how it's already been opened and like they've been drinking wine. Like it all makes sense. I liked that, and then I obviously I like the ending. I like that when like initially in my mind the whole time I'm like, wow, like she's so robotic, and then and then the end when you're like, oh my goodness.
She did a great job with that.
Yeah.
Watching, but I know we talked about it, and she's like, how do I do this? And I'm not like overdo it and not indicate, that you're. It's hard.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Yeah, she never did. She never did like give it away. I was just it was like a subtle thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think my favorite scene is that candlelit dinner because it's the scene that takes you off the scent of what she is, because it is romantic and you do feel that connection between the two of them and between Mikey's cinematography and the set design in that shot. And then the way I emphasize things with the candlelight really focused it down in the color correction to make it feel much darker and warmer and rich an experience. And I think it's a tiny, tiny scene and it doesn't seem important, but I think it's vital because it was one of the scenes Clark talked about cutting when he was talking about shortening the film down. I said, you can't cut that scene. It's what makes everybody feel like these two people belong together.
Yeah, we put that back pretty darn quick. But Annie was actually kind of worried. She told me that she was worried people might think she was acting a little bit too cardboard or rigidy or just not like an actor, an actor's role would be. But I think she did a great job because she's always kind of bubbly and kind of optimistic and happy, and maybe she's been programmed to be that way more or less. That's what she kind of was thinking. So
yeah, there's a beautiful casual. Mutual affection you feel between the two of them in those shots around that candlelit dinner that it isn't overly intimate. It just feels so relaxed that I think we fill in the gaps of their history right away, very early in the film with that scene. And then she can be as robotic as she wants the rest of the time. We've already established her as being warm.
And that's the thing is the whole point is that you don't notice until you don't realize that it was just a little bit robotic until the end.
Yeah.
Not like I wasn't thinking that when watching it.
Right.
I think that makes it a great movie to want to go look at again and look at twice or maybe 3 times to pick up new stuff.
And I think that's what great sci-fi is it's stuff that's rewatchable, because every time you watch it, you find something else to learn, something else to glean out of it, because there's so much layering in most sci-fi, story-wise and visually. It's sci-fi is my favorite genre of film for a lot of those reasons.
And
Clark,
I didn't really want to make it a sci-fi. Like, I didn't want to focus too much on the gadgets and the whole process of how he's making the clone. It's really more of a relationship movie and story. So I didn't. That's why there's so many scenes where they're talking and having little restaurant scenes and just conversations.
That sci-fi isn't about the science side of it. It's about the humanity side within the context of a science fiction story. And I think you hit the nail on the head with it on this one. So on the production side of things, Clark, I know you had your heart set on a lot of oneers, which would have made your post-production a different experience, because you would have not had a lot of editing options. I know Mike Peterson, Michael Shane, and Teresa, and myself, we pushed real hard for you to shoot multicam and shoot in a way that you'd never shot before. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience for you and how you think it worked out? Yeah,
mainly the doctor scenes I had designed. Actually, I did an animatic of the whole thing, an animated animatic of the whole doctor scenes being a oneer and moving the camera around. It was a little too technical and would have taken a lot more time probably to really perfect, but that was the main thing. Not so much in the garage, and I was okay with all the 3 camera stuff. That was great, but there's just like maybe 5 or 6, and most of them are there. Like when she comes home from work and greets him by the garage door there, and they talk by the refrigerator. That's a oneer that I had in mind. And also when she comes down the stairs, and he kisses her goodbye, and he coughs up the blood. That's another oneer. So a lot of my oneers did get in there. So that's most of them did.
Yeah, they're a little modified for what we had with the space available, and also lensing and stuff like that. But they're in there here and there.
And in the scenes where you had the multicams, how did the editing get affected for you by having the multicam shots? Did you find that more difficult to deal with because you had so much footage, or did you find that liberating to have a lot of things to choose from?
It was definitely liberating, because I didn't want the split screen stuff to be more like a showcase, like, oh, look how cool we are. We're doing the split screen. Let's just focus on that the whole time. I was happy to have it cut around to the different actors. And one thing I didn't want to do, that I'm glad we didn't do, was where you have like an over-the-shoulder, and you see the stand-in's ear and it's part of his head. I never bought those types of shots. I'm glad we didn't do those, because I'm always looking for the differences in his ear and his color, and those shots never worked for me. So I'm glad we didn't do that. But yeah, the short answer is I'm very glad we got all the different angles. Close-ups of both Randys, cut away back to them. If some of the split screens weren't working, if they were crossing their paths, we can just cut away to the other shots. So very liberating. That's a good way to put it.
It was an interesting process, because the 3 of us, which I guess triplet, Kevin Burke called us triplets. The triplets are used to the multi-camera thing, so it was something we were decent at and we can do and execute. But it was interesting, especially on like the first 2 days, of someone like Kevin Burke, who was the AD, trying to keep us on schedule and was worried that we weren't on schedule, and I just had to keep assuring him that we were, and we'd be fine, to just don't worry about it, because the concept, he hadn't worked on a multi-camera shoot either. And so the concept that we would get multiple shots that were needed in one go, it took a little bit for him to grasp. Eventually he was like, we kept ending on time for the schedule of when we needed things to be done and have all the shots done. And he was like, wow, this is a whole different ballgame to try to shoot this way. I know it's a little long waiting for the actors to get, it takes a little longer for the crew to set, but then the actors don't have to do as many takes. so they can, usually get through, and you can get your best takes from actors within 2 to 5 takes usually. But if they have to do it over and over again, 2 to 5 takes for every different angle you want, that's where you start to have a lot of the issues and the problems and stuff. For everybody, we all screw up, the crew and the acting. So I think the multi-camera was very helpful, especially for Randy when he had to do a lot of emotional and movement stuff. I think it was helpful for him.
You know what the hardest one was for me? The clone monologue, where it was like, because I couldn't stutter, or
you had a lot of scientific dialogue.
Yeah, you couldn't pause like Shatner does when he forgets a line. It was like, rule number one, you cannot. Rule number one, you cannot. I don't even know what it was, but it took me forever to get through that because I kept stumbling. And I would just start over until I got through it.
But yeah, I mean, if you imagine if we didn't do multi-cameras on that scene, you would have had to have done that a lot more times to try to get through. And since you were already struggling with it to begin with, that's when those moments multi-camera is super helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to sound like a computer, like Siri, and get it all the way through. Finally got it.
It was really hot in there.
Yeah, that was part of it too.
This was our first time working with Kevin, and it was awesome. He is a great AD.
Oh yeah,
and it's really important to have a good AD on your set. It makes things go so much more smoothly.
Yeah, Kevin is amazing as a AD.
He's a drill sergeant, and he had everything meticulously written down on spreadsheets. So even like to the minute how long something's going to take, and then the next minute, the next thing.
And he and I worked really closely together on his little spreadsheets so I could show him what stuff we'd already done and where we were in his time frame. So
yeah. So as we're wrapping up here, IntelleXual University is all about people learning from our experiences, and it's great that we talk about the things we're very happy with. Final question, and we can kind of keep it limited to Clark if you guys want. But what is the biggest lesson you learned in this that you're going to take forward into the next project? Something that you didn't do as well as you would have liked, and that's going to change how you do things going forward.
Probably should have asked me that ahead of time so I could think about it. But I would say that I guess the doctor scenes are definitely the most problematic, and I guess I wish we had done some more rehearsing. I mean, I think with time, the one-ers definitely would have worked the way I had in my mind and all that, the way they were like in the animatics, but there just wasn't enough time. The room was too small. I mean, that whole scene was just problematic from the get-go. So I would say more planning, meet up with your DP a little bit more, especially in a location like that. And make, if you really want this one-er to happen, and it's a very specific technical shot, then you have to get in there, and you can't just do it on the spot. That has to be rehearsed ahead of time.
Yeah, I know, Clark, when I work with the team, I try to bring them out to the locations a couple weeks before we shoot so that they can walk it, they can space it out. We can have those conversations ahead of time on what might not be capable. So we're not arguing about it on the day. It's really, really helpful to have your production team involved in pre-production.
Yeah, I think one of the issues with that was that we tried scheduling it for a later time or a later date, and then it was that the date was pushed forward because that's when everyone was available, and then I think we just had some timing issues, not having enough time to prepare in all the ways that we could have.
Right. And that's not only for the camera crew, but I mean, it would have been helpful if we could have had Larry and Randy get that a little tighter. I mean, it was very spread out, a lot of pauses and this and that. For a one-er to work effectively, it's got to be kind of tight and faster paced.
One-ers are essential.
One-ers are essential for that, yeah.
On top of what they're doing, because you don't have anything to cut to.
So I would say I overreached.
Larry's like
overreached in that scene.
What's that, Randy?
I was gonna say Larry's like Sam Elliott. He don't do slow. Or I mean, he doesn't do fast.
Nope.
He's
So I kind of
the earth. He's very,
Love working with Larry Poole. He's
amazing.
He's such an incredible guy, and always gives you a strong performance. But Larry has a very distinct idea on how he's going to deliver a performance, and you got to trust him as you do with any other actor to bring his A game and what he's doing, and he always does. Which
Oh yeah.
Well, and as a crew too, you have to recognize the actors that you are working with too, and what their abilities are. And sometimes we have to adjust what we had in our mind too, to go along with what the actual flow of what the actors are presenting and what they actually can give for what is given to them. So even on the spot, like I said, Mike said it, the triplets, we did a whole weekend of rehearsing and practicing certain things. And we had some ideas on shots, and we adjusted on site too, based off of their speed and what could actually be done and what movement could actually happen, and that's the nature of filmmaking though, is you have, even though you might have it in your head, 9 10 out of 10, you have to adjust on set.
But always somebody's always like, I want 100%. And we're like, we can do 60. We can do 60 today. We can do 60. 70 maybe, but definitely not 100. We can't fly that in. It's not going to happen.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today, and it was fun to watch the movie with everybody. I've never made it to any of the public screenings, so nice to have that chance with you guys today. And Elise, thank you for joining us all the way from Hawaii.
Wow. Bye.
And thanks for having our movie on your show. I've never been on your show. This is the first for me, and not for all of you guys, but it is for me. And it's been great to finally be on this side of the coin. And I appreciate it a lot.
I'm glad we could do it. And I hope if you've joined this episode of IntelleXual University and you haven't seen the movie yet, it is still available at the Intellectual Entertainment Facebook page and at the YouTube page. So make sure you go check it out. It's worth your watch, and you'll have a lot of insight going into it already. So again, thank you all very much, and thank you to our viewers. It's been a great IntelleXual University, and we will hopefully see you guys all again in real life and make another movie together, like hopefully sometime soon. Probably not till 2021, but that's not that far off now, right?
Start playing now.
We just gotta plan something in quarantine for 14 days ahead of time, and just
This is the worst.
That's an idea.
Keep an eye out. Keep an eye out for me.
We get a cabin in Idlewild for.
We do know a cabin in Idlewild.
We do know a guy, don't we?
That could
A guy who, we'll have to figure that out.
We didn't get a chance to talk about it, but we are, all of us in this group here, regrouped to create this new feature. I showed you the poster earlier, Mystery Highway. So that's what we're doing now, and it's slowly coming together despite the virus and all that. We're going to get it done.
Yeah, Mike is going to help me with some editing here in the next couple of weeks.
Yep. If we're doing plugs, I'm going to do a quick plug. Keep an eye out in October and November for I have a role in David Fincher's new movie, Mank. Play the maitre d' with Gary Oldman, and United States versus Billie Holiday, Lee Daniels' new movie. Senator Joseph McCarthy.
Very cool.
Looking for some red carpet screenings, but probably going to go right to
video on demand, right?
Yeah.
And let's make sure we say thank you to Annie Willett Thomas. She joined us for a little while, but she was having internet issues and couldn't stay on with us. But it's always good to have her on, and hopefully we can get her back on sometime down the road, maybe just on the podcast in general. So, guys, thank you so much. Have a great rest of the week, and we will see you all again on IntelleXual University. Till next time, bye.
Good to see you guys.
Bye.
Awesome stuff. Thanks.